Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really getting into something that affects so many of us every year, the seasonal flu.
It comes around like clockwork.
Exactly. And we've been digging into a pretty detailed health talk segment on this, pulling out the key info on, how to best protect yourself.
Right. The goal is really to give you that shortcut, the essential takeaways, without getting bogged down.
So let's start with the basics, just to level set. The sources are clear. Seasonal flu is, well, it's a contagious respiratory thing.
Caused by influenza viruses specifically. Hits the nose, throat, sometimes the lungs too.
And it's an annual visitor, right?
Yeah.
Usually it picks up in the fall, peaks in winter, like October to March, roughly.
That's the typical window, yeah, fall and winter.
Now, here's something that really stood out from the material. A lot of people might just think, oh, it's just a bad cold.
Right, but that's a key distinction we need to make. The flu can actually get pretty serious, especially, and this is important, for certain groups. We're talking young children, older folks, pregnant women, and anyone with ongoing health conditions like asthma or heart disease.
So understanding that potential severity, that it's not just a cold, really changes the game. It makes this personal.
Absolutely. It connects directly to your health or maybe the health of people you care about.
Okay, so that brings us to the million-dollar question the source tackled. How do you tell the difference? Flu versus the common cold.
Yeah, that's a common one.
Our deep dive into this health talk, well, they laid out the typical flu symptoms pretty clearly. You've got the sudden fever,
Often quite high.
cough, sore throat, runny or stuffy nose, definitely those body aches,
Ugh, the body aches. And fatigue, like real exhaustion. Chills, too.
right? And interestingly, they mentioned for kids, sometimes vomiting or diarrhea can show up, which seems less common for adults with flu.
That's true. But the thing that really distinguishes it, based on what we reviewed, is the onset. How fast it hits you.
Ah, okay. So not just what symptoms, but how quickly they appear.
Exactly. 1 minute you might feel okay, maybe a little scratchy throat. The next, boom, you feel like you've been hit by a truck. High fever, aches, just wiped out.
Whereas a cold usually creeps up on you more slowly, right? Like a day or two of feeling run down before it really settles in.
Precisely. That sudden, intense arrival is often the flu's calling card. It's much more dramatic.
That's a really helpful distinction. So it's the speed and the intensity. Does the source material give any hints as to why? Why does flu hit so much harder and faster?
Good question. The material sort of implied that the influenza virus itself is just more aggressive in how it replicates in your respiratory system compared to, say, most common cold viruses.
Okay.
So this faster multiplication triggers a really strong systemic immune response almost immediately. That's why you get that sudden high fever and those deep aches. Your body's basically sounding all the alarms at once.
Wow. Okay, a rapid escalation, as you said.
Exactly.
And that makes prevention even more critical, doesn't it? Which leads us right into what the sources say is the absolute cornerstone of flu defense.
Let me guess. The vaccine.
You got it. The annual flu shot. Our health talk source was emphatic.
Yeah.
This is the #1 way to protect yourself.
And it's important to understand what it does. It's designed each year to match the flu strains scientists expect to be circulating.
Right. So it's not like a general cold shield. It's targeted.
Very targeted. And the main benefit isn't necessarily preventing any illness, though it can help with that, but it's really about reducing your risk of getting seriously sick, needing hospitalization, or, facing dangerous complications.
So even if you do get the flu after the shot, it's likely to be much milder.
Much milder, generally. It essentially gives your immune system a heads up, a blueprint for fighting off those specific viruses. And the sources stressed its safety and effectiveness for almost everyone 6 months and older.
Yeah, and you mentioned something earlier about the community aspect.
Oh, absolutely. Getting vaccinated isn't just about you. It's a huge part of community immunity or herd immunity.
Right, protecting others too.
Yeah. When enough people are vaccinated, the virus has a much harder time spreading. This protects those vulnerable people we talked about, babies too young for the shot, people with weakened immune systems.
So my shot helps protect my elderly neighbor, potentially.
Exactly. It's a ripple effect, a shared defense system.
That's a powerful idea.
Yeah.
Okay, so the vaccine is #1, but the health talk didn't stop there, right? There are other sort of everyday things.
Oh, yeah, definitely. The everyday hygiene stuff is crucial, too.
Like hand washing, the classic.
Can't beat it. Soap and water at least 20 seconds, especially, after coughing, sneezing, being out in public.
And if you can't get to a sink,
Alcohol-based hand sanitizer is the next best thing.
good to keep some handy.
Also, that point about not touching your face. Eyes, nose, mouth. It's amazing how often we do it without thinking.
It's so automatic. But that's a major entry point for germs. So being mindful of that, especially during flu season, is really
Well,
important.
and for coughs and sneezes. Tissue if you have one. Or your elbow. Just not your hands if you can help it. Don't want to spread germs onto surfaces.
Makes sense. What about keeping your distance?
Yeah, strategic distancing, as you called it. If someone's clearly sick, try to limit close contact. Seems obvious, but
And the flip side,
yeah.
if you're sick,
Stay home. Please stay home. Don't be a hero. Don't go to work or school. Rest up and avoid spreading it. That's critical.
okay, so vaccine, hygiene, distancing. Anything else on the prevention front?
Well, the source also touched on just general wellness, kind of boosting your body's natural defenses.
Ah, like strengthening your inner Fort Knox, as they put it.
Exactly. Eating well, getting enough sleep, that's huge. For immunity, staying physically active, managing stress levels. These things don't guarantee you won't get sick, but they definitely help your body be better prepared to fight off infections.
Right, giving your immune system the best possible toolkit.
Mm-hmm. And one more practical thing. Cleaning.
Oh yeah, surfaces.
Frequently touched surfaces, doorknobs, light switches, phones, keyboards. Wiping those down regularly, especially when flu is circulating, can make a difference.
Okay, so that's a pretty solid prevention checklist. But what if, despite your best efforts, the flu gets you? What did the health talk advise then?
Right, because sometimes it happens. The first steps are pretty straightforward, mostly common sense.
Stay home, right?
Definitely stay home, get lots of rest. And fluids. Water, broth, juice, whatever helps you stay hydrated.
And what about feeling awful? The aches, the fever?
Over-the-counter medicines can help manage those symptoms. Things like acetaminophen or ibuprofen for fever and pain, decongestants sometimes, maybe cough drops, just for relief, really.
But there's a point where you need more than just home care, right? When should you call a doctor?
Absolutely. The source was clear. If your symptoms are really severe, like difficulty breathing, chest pain, sudden dizziness, confusion, or a fever that just won't break, seek medical help immediately. Also, if you're in one of those high-risk groups we mentioned earlier, it's generally a good idea to check in with your doctor even if symptoms seem moderate, just to be safe.
And doctors sometimes prescribe antiviral drugs, right?
They might, yes. Medications like Tamiflu, for example. But there's a really important catch with antivirals.
Ah, what's that?
Timing is everything. The health talk emphasized they work best, like significantly best, if you start taking them within the first 48 hours of your symptoms starting.
48 hours. That's a tight window.
It really is, because these drugs work by stopping the virus from making more copies of itself. The earlier you start, the less virus there is to deal with, which can shorten how long you're sick and, crucially, reduce the risk of serious complications.
So if you think you have the flu, especially if you're high risk, contacting your doctor quickly could make a big difference in whether antivirals are an effective option.
Exactly. Don't wait and see for too long if you're feeling really rough or fall into those higher risk categories. Acting fast is key there.
Okay, wow. That's a lot of ground we've covered, really digging into this health talk material.
Yeah, it was quite comprehensive.
So just to kind of wrap up the main points from our deep dive today.
Yeah.
Seasonal flu, yes, it's common, but it doesn't have to knock you or the community for six.
Right. The knowledge is there, and the actions are, for the most part, pretty simple.
Get the annual flu shot, that's the big one. Practice good hygiene, like washing your hands often and covering coughs. Stay home if you're sick.
Keep your distance when possible. Take care of your general health.
And know when to seek medical help, especially regarding that crucial 48-hour window for antivirals.
Exactly. These steps aren't just about protecting yourself. They're about protecting everyone, your family, your colleagues, your community. It's a collective effort.
A shield for you and a shield for us all, essentially.
Well put. Which kind of leads to a final thought, doesn't it? Something maybe to chew on.
Go for it.
Well, if we know that widespread adoption of these relatively simple measures, vaccination,